being picked up and we are crystal clean black women and these other culture women are walking with these pretty
might push a nerve, it might push a
it
nerve,
might do. So you've got that is, I wanted just to pick up on your point on that, because that is something that is going on at the moment. A lot of sisters in particular are having this conversation more regularly because they're not able to find brothers that they think should be brothers.
Okay, all right. So we'll stick a pin there, don't go nowhere. But as you mentioned brothers, I've got a brother beside me. Organisation.
Defend the team now.
Stand up like that. Not like that stand up. I get it wrong. I get it wrong. So tell us about your organisation, because I know you had a big event in October. I spoke at that event. You invited me to speak on a panel about mental health. And so just say a little bit about maybe yourself and your organisation.
So for those of you who don't know, my name is Andre. I run a community organisation called Stand Up Black Dads. The organisation was created 2019, and it's to educate, empower and transform the stereotype of the black male, predominantly black dads. Black dads are seen as a common stereotype to not be around, to be unreliable, etc. There's loads of things that can be added to the mountain. So as well as wanting to celebrate dads as a whole, to actually being around, participant, taking care of your child, not just financially or materially, but actually just being present. We want to try and give them tools to empower. So just like you said, we had an event October the 26th for Black History Month. It will be an annual thing going forward, and you can see us on any social media platform. And in the event itself, we covered motivation and empowerment, we covered money management and debt recovery, we covered mental health, sexual health. We also had a live panel, so you could speak to different fathers around the UK based on parenthood or any London current issue that's going on. So that's where I stand.
How has the organisation been received? Because that's obviously like a big area. There's always that, as I said, there are stereotypes, big endless list about black men, in particular about black dads. So how has it been received? I know the event was buzzing.
The lead up to the event had mixed messages, I'm not gonna lie. Outside and inside the community of black people had mixed messages. So some were all for the event, thought it was powerful, loved the name, loved what the information had to give and what the event was going to entail other people, but it wasn't for them. Felt that we was trying to instruct you on how to be a dad rather than celebrate you being a dad. Some people felt that by dealing with black dads creates more of a problem because you're bringing the issue into a platform of awareness rather than keeping it underground. Some people thought it wasn't inclusive of other races because of the name. Some people felt that it wasn't inclusive for families or women's because of the name. But
there's a lot of women at the event, though.
There was a lot of women at the event. If you went on any of the social media, the website, any of the promo that went out, you'd see that it was inclusive for families, kids. We had under 2 tickets for free. So we had loads of free stuff at the event for children. So there was stuff like board games, activities, face painting, there was food, loads of stuff for women. So we had a mini market at the event as well. So that had healthcare, skincare, hair care. We had literature. We had chemit, books, diaries, calendars. We had clothing. There's loads of stuff involved for, in my opinion, everyone. As much as I built the program, we dealt with, that was one of the main nuggets actually. So one of the things we had was we dealt with family law, because obviously as dads, that's a big issue that they feel they don't have enough rights to be a standard parent, let alone a parent. So family, we had a barrister come in to speak about parental responsibility and parental rights. So that was one of the key nuggets within the event itself. That one I felt was directed predominantly at males, but in terms of money management, anyone can benefit from money management. In terms of mental health, it affects everyone and anyone can benefit from it. So it wasn't limited to men, but I am aware of the elephant that's in the room, that there's a stereotype against black dads. It's in comedy, it's in movies, it's in the media, it's in press. It's not a secret. I don't want to hide behind it. I'm not treading on eggshells. That is what we're about. So anyone, male, female, child that wants to be a part of the movement and to help support the movement going forward and add any type of value, you're more than welcome.
The lawyer spoke about dads and not custody, is access to their children.
Access, yeah.
Is that you? Obviously, you spoke to a lot of black dads in the context of your work. in or outside of the work, is how big an issue is that?
A very big issue. A very big issue. So for the conversations and experiences that I've had going along this journey, a lot of males, they want base information to what they have access to regardless. So, excuse me, whether it's being in a troubled or domestic relationship or being in a happy home, it could be either points, but if someone could be prepared before it even happens, why not gain the information? So there are a lot of people that want access to it, more so people that are going through hard times, because obviously for the human race, until we're actually going through a problem, that's when we decide to tackle it. But that's, we would like basic information. There's a lot of times where it's just at a flick of a switch where no access, you're not picking them up on the weekend, to even someone who has experienced the point of they didn't even realise they are not allowed to see their child anymore until CSA has called them and said the mother has informed us that you're no longer seeing your child and now we have to raise your payment. So for stuff like that, for you to find out like that, not even being aware, and still have to have no choice of giving a higher income. Maybe you don't have it, maybe you do, but that's not a choice you have. So to have the information and the knowledge behind it, and if we can provide you those tools, I'm for it. And as I said, if anyone can add extra value to it, more than welcome.
That sounds not traumatic, but that sounds really disturbing to know that there's men that are going through that. And I wondered, in the organisation, do you have, apart from the information, do you have a safe space where men can like offload? So where they meet, congregate, maybe just speak about the challenges that they have, or offload about how they feel about stuff.
That's something that's up and coming, so still within the pipeline. As I said, this already started this year officially. So because I've understood that we are running annually, so every October, and obviously for people they need continuous care going throughout the year. So we work with as many organisations as we possibly can that can provide the continuous care going forward. So stuff like yourself, Insight, Emotional Insight, and Mind Charity, who can provide continuous care going forward. We are working with a few safe spaces at the moment, so people like Croydon Fathers Forum, people like Dope Black Dads, people like Kami. So Kami is a women's mental health. They are a safe space, so we're dealing with men and women.
So collaborating?
Yeah, definitely. We have daughters. We're working with both. We have wives, partners, moms, cousins, etc. So why wouldn't we work as allies? It would be silly not to. So to have those safe spaces, for me, those are the ones I can recommend at the moment, because I've been able to vet them myself. But going forward, I would love to work with more safe spaces. Potentially, I'd love to create safe spaces, but again, it has to meet the needs of the individual. So stuff like areas and times and venues, etc. So there we go. So that's why at the moment I'm working with organisations that already have those things in place within their specific areas, that if anyone did need that help, they can contact me or contact any of the social media or any of my team, and we can direct them to possible networks.
Cool. What's the biggest challenge that your work in the organisation, your agenda going forward, what's the biggest challenge on the horizon that you've encountered so far? What's the biggest fight, and what's the biggest obstacle?
The biggest fight I've encountered, but I potentially knew it was a challenge regardless, is getting men involved in what we're trying to do, and our community as a whole. Those have been the biggest challenges for me personally. For me personally, those have been the biggest challenges. When I set up my organisation, they potentially could be challenges going forward, but I never applied for any outside funding, any external funding. I haven't set up as a charity as yet, so those things weren't problems for me. Like, obviously funding was an issue, because I had to work to make the funding, but other than as business moving forward, getting a bigger team, getting more support, more network, those things will come, but for the people I was fighting for, that's where my biggest issues came in.
The people that you were trying to help with some of the biggest obstacles. It's interesting.
But in the black community, just to add to that, that is the biggest thing. I've been an activist for 30 years in the community, been on radio as an active radio presenter. The biggest thing, and it can be very demoting if you're committed to a cause for your community and your people, The biggest issue that we have is exactly that, the lack of support and response from the very people that you've dedicated yourself to support and help. You hardly get events, 100 people got tickets for this event. There's about 60 at least on the list. So whether it's this event or another event, like the brothers' event for black males, it's the same thing. It's lack of response. Women always, majority of people that do turn up are the females, and again, it's the lack of response from the men. The community are interested from a distance, and that's the thing, is that you can't be interested and not be active. You have to be active in order to make the change. The change is going to happen because only 10 people are doing it. Changes happen because a mass of people stick to that program. You need the community to represent as a community. The only time we seem to represent as a community is when we've had somebody that's been stabbed and we're doing a march or we're doing a walk. But when it comes to fighting for everyday practical issues, whether it's the education one in the schooling system, whether it's the young girls in the community where we want forums or places, or the youth one, it's constantly trying to get your own people to jump on so that we can show that we're doing this in numbers and there's a need. They know there's a need, the state knows there's a need, but if they don't see the numbers, they ain't pushing at themselves. They're not pushing at themselves. So that is the biggest issue that I've had as well, is the response from your own community.
Interesting, very fascinating. Stick a pin. I'm going to put it out to the guys. Is there any comments or questions that you have for Brother Andre in terms of what you heard? Was it surprising about the things to do with access? Surprising that men found it challenging? Anything that kind of provoked a bit of thought? A bit of a controversial area. I know Black Dads is a bit of a...
No,
but we've got to talk.
Your issue that you spoke about on your biggest issue was the main issue that you said when the fathers highlight it's about having access to the children. I deal with that as well. As a radio presenter, I get calls if I do talk show subjects on the same issues of black relationships, and the issue, the phones come in from the fathers, left, right and centre on the phone. Can't see my child, can't get access to my child. Says that I can see even court orders where judges have ruled contact on a court order that, you know, some mothers don't adhere to that. And I'll tell you who's a good book to get. Patrick Augustus has written a book called Weekend Father. You know, he did the Baby Father series. This book isn't about anything to do with that. It's a legal book about your rights as a father. It's on, you got it? I've actually interviewed him. When he launched the book, I interviewed him in the studio, and I had a few copies I gave away in the community. I still recommend that book today. And funny enough, I recommended it to one of my family members, one of my nephews, who's having issues with his one child that he's had. Mother can't get to see the child. He can't get to see the child. I recommended that book. He got it there straight away. Saw him 3 weeks later, bumped into him on the street. It was like, do you know what, auntie? That book is banging. It's helped me. It's a legal book. It tells you, and the thing with this book, it tells women that if you breach these laws, you are legally liable to be arrested, to be charges. And I think, unfortunately, when you have unhealthy separations, the child is always the factor in the middle that gets pulled left.
The victim.
Always.
Yeah.
So that hasn't changed for decades and generation. It's about getting to a place where it's not about the two adults and it's about the child. When you get to that place, then you can have those contacts in place and there's no dynamics, and a father can be a father if there's no concerning issues, child protection issues. However, that book does actually tell fathers exactly. They don't have to have a solicitor to get certain documents. They can go into any court, magistrate court, any courthouse, ask specifically for these forms, fill it out there and then put a request in, judge will look at it. So most fathers find it difficult, and I'm sure, Andre, because they think it's all about money. I've got to have the legal money to pay solicitors. I've had
people
that.
In my business.
I don't have money to have the solicitors, and I don't have money to. I want to, but I ain't got the money because my income and everything else, which is understandable. So this book that Patrick Augustus has done, it's based on all the things that separated parents who want to have some kind of contact can do without hiring a solicitor. You can get your forms, you can put in your requests, you've got these dates booked, you've got hearings booked, and those are all the things you can do without solicitors. There are orders that can be put in place that if partners do not adhere to, they can be dragged into court rather than the baby father being dragged into court. And I think what's happened is that the legal system, particularly with black families, and I think this is why they've changed that law, is that because we have a stereotype image of black fathers not representing their children or playing the role. They've actually decided now that when it comes to things like the CSA or fighting for contact, that they do look at the fathers more favourably now. State is sick and tired of having black single mothers on your benefit system. So that's how they're looking at it. That's how the state is in it. So now they want fathers to play a role.
What's going on at an emotional level? I'm putting this out to everybody. What's going on at an emotional level? If that's common, why is that common? Because obviously people, they're happy, it's going good, and then when they don't agree, it's cool.
There's lots of dynamics. Sometimes people confuse sex for love. There's one thing having a relationship just for sex. We've all got physical needs. You can have a sexual relationship that just meets your sexual needs. If you're not in a healthy relationship and you're a single man or a single woman and you're just having sex, then sensible thing is what we would tell our children: wear protection. But mature men and women are not doing that. It's become a sexualized pornography society. And out of that behavior, you've got children, you've got parents who ain't ready to be parents, weren't mentally ready to be a parent, was happy to have the sex and have the fun in a long-term relationship. But you get caught. And when you get caught, it throws your life and your emotions out of sync. Everything changes. So people, you were mentioning something about back in the day how we were taught to kind of do things in a certain way and in a certain order, old school generation, that you know, find your husband, then you get married and have your house, and then you have your children. Pretty much what most Indian cultures still practice today. They marry their children young. Once they're married, within a space of, you've got the marriage, 3 weeks later she's pregnant. But yet they were together for a year and she wasn't pregnant in that year. As soon as that Indian girl or that Indian man is married to his partner, within the space of 3 months, she's already having her baby. Now we have a more sexualized culture. So because we're a sexualized culture, you get caught. You're not ready to be a father, you're not ready to be a mum. Some of us plan, and that's very rare, that some of us plan our children, and therefore you are prepared and you are to take on the challenges, whether you're together or not. And this is like, you know, what's going on. People are not mature to be parents, because when you're mature to be parents, you're mature to know enough. Things can go wrong. We need to make sure our child is sorted. People say that, but because of the emotional hurt and the pain that's going on through that process, the behaviour becomes the child as the weapon. Women are guilty of doing that more so than men, because we are the carers of that child. 90% of the time when we separate, the man's out the door, we're at home with our babies. So we've got the key responsibility to try and set changes in place. Give brothers the opportunity to try and be a good dad. We're on our game, we're shit hot, we know what we like and what we don't like. Put the rules in place, give them a chance to tweak it, because I think it's really sad that we as a cultural group of people who are solidly talented, multi-talented, are getting this constant worldwide label of not being parents. Yet we do have harmonious relationship in the past and in our present. Your grandparents, your great-grandparents show us that we have that. It's just a new kind of modernity that we've got caught up in that's breaking our pattern. We need to go back to that and let our fathers, when we walk down the street, how often do you feel good when you see a brother with his, a man with his children, and it makes you feel healthy as a black person. We've got healthy families. And that's what we need to go back into play. We need to be talking to each other. Young men, them need to talk to each other and tell brothers to do the right thing by your child. You may not have planned to have it with that particular girl, because most of the time it's a sex thing, not a baby mother thing or my wife thing. So you end up having a child with the girl you didn't expect to have it with. But you still need to encourage each other, particularly the young generation, being fathers and being mothers to your child. That is detrimental to your child's development. I'm a qualified nursery officer, many qualified things, and I am a nursery officer, and I'm also an ex-social worker. I have seen the impact of children that are damaged between two parents who just can't organise a contact pattern. That's all it is.
Let me jump in. So what it seems like, there might be a power dynamic going on between the two, right? And when there's unresolved issues between parents, men may, if they want to still continue that relationship with a woman, and he's resentful that she's given him his marching order, he may hold back his contact or hold back his money as a power, as a way of kind of like leveraging power. I'm not going to see the child, or I'm not going to support the child. And women likewise, if they got some kind of resentment or some unresolved issue with that guy, then it's easy for her to start to create barriers and stuff like that, and it's just not cool. So I think what it sounds like what we're hearing is that women need to call women out in those private conversations, and I think likewise men need to call out men on those kind of issues? Is that some of the politics that you hear about? You know, we spoke about the politics.
I agree to a lot of the points that Sista made. I do feel that some of the points that she's made is based on a generational thing. So I fully agree.
I can't tell it off. Sorry about that.
No,
Excuse me, I tried to tell it off.
I fully agree with a lot of the things she was saying in terms of a healthy relationship and knowing what you want out of a relationship. But as one of the key points I picked up on was that women change constantly, and even for myself growing up as a young man, there's so much things that I have had to learn about women growing up. So it's going to be challenging going forward constantly because you're always changing. So a classic example I can use now is, say for me growing up in my teens, for a girl to be like sexing me on the first date, are you nuts? That's not happening. Now, I don't know how many of you on social media, but
it's a damn thing.
Yeah, that is it. If we're having sex on the first day, it's an interview. You're not my man. This ain't a link thing. This is an interview to make sure I need to know you might be number 4, you might be number 5, but
so young people having sex with
multiple
people they
sex
wouldn't
with
lend
the
their
same
door
partners.
keys to.
More or less, and obviously
you'd be surprised what's going on
old,
with young people.
I'm
Trust me, it's not a good
but
one.
this
Absolutely
is it. So
that. It's that.
This is what it is now.
It
So especially as a man,
It's not good look.
what message are you giving me? So at the same time, like you said, 3-4 times, and then a man's expecting what is this? Is it a linking thing? At the same time, as a man, if you've given it to me on the first or second occasion, what am I working for? You've already given it to me.
And even if I keep you around, you're not a valued aspect.
But at the same time, no, it's definitely not a women thing.
No, it's not even
a women thing. But
it's a generational change in behaviour. It's a generational change in women's.
It's a sector of what's happening out there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We've got a pornographic society.
Yeah.
So if you're promoting a pornographic society, the youngest generation right now are more pornographic children than our generation. And the problem is that even when I was working with my young girls, even young girls that wasn't even my key client, oh gee, I'm pregnant, sister, hey, I'm pregnant. And I said, who for? You've not got a boyfriend. Instant reaction, could only be 7 boys. I've only had 7 boys in the last couple of weeks. And that is just flippant conversation, just like, I know.
Girls? It's not to like
Hey,
necessarily. Why
I know.
Is
It's
that
not.
I know.
happening?
Wait. This is the perfect time to bring in Sanya.
Sorry.
Sanya, our clinical counsellor for the day, right?
Sorry.
Because it's all a conversation.
No, sorry.
And we're going to talk about attachment, and we're going to talk about love language, and we're going to talk about all of that, which is all relevant, yeah? But could you just like introduce yourself in terms of your counselling background and a bit of what you do?
So I've been a counsellor for maybe 6 years now. Practicing, qualified. I have a private practice. I partly work for the NHS and Mind. Background in mental health as well as